Hey, this is Anders, and you're listening to TCR.
Okay, so let's start.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Center Ring, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast. Episode 80 coming to you live, pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. The date, November 1st, 2017. The time, 6:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll be one of your hosts for this evening. My name is Tim. Hello. How are you? Joining me are my two best buds, my fire team. It's a Nuge. Hello, Nuge.
Hey, bud. How you doing? I like what you did there.
Oh, I'm keeping it topical, you know?
That was good.
Keeping it
Good.
topical. And then we have Brett. Hello, Brett.
Hello, friends.
And then we also have Moisty, who just joined the Discord, but I'm going to have to kick you, Moisty. I love you. You want to say hi?
I hate you.
You want to say hi to the podcast?
Hi, podcast. Bye.
So loud, Moisty. Bye. That's what happens. That's live recording, folks. Oh, what else do we have? This is really going to be the best episode ever. Not because Branderson just made an appearance on the show. But that's also a good introduction that we do have a Discord. And look at that. We're on it. People are on it. You just heard it. Go to our website, tcr.gg, and to our Twitter, @TheCenterRing. And, you know.
Hell, if
Follow.
you get on during the recording, we'll let you say hi.
Yeah, if we happen to do that. With that being said, let's move us down to the proper channel in our Discord here, to where we won't be interrupted again. There we go. Well, what else do we have on the show, gentlemen? Actually, we're going to end the show with some e-news. Got a lot of e-news to get to. A lot of things starting this week that we want to at least touch on. Epicenter just ended for Counter-Strike Go. Frustrating. I'm frustrated about Epicenter. I got to get it off my chest. I don't know if it's warranted. I'm not salty. I'm just frustrated. So we'll talk about some Epicenter there. But to start the show off, I actually want to piggyback off of another way more successful podcast than us. And that's the H3H3 podcast. So recently, H3H3, for those who don't know, they're on YouTube. Very popular. I'm sure you know who they are. Go check them out if you don't. They're great. But they also do a podcast, and they always have like a rotating door of guests. Well, last Friday, they had Dr. Disrespect on. Dr. Disrespect,
My
again,
man.
if you don't know who he is, he's a two-time champion, back-to-back. And he's a great Twitch streamer, a lot of insight. He is, or was, one of the lead developer for map design for Sledgehammer Games, which famously did Modern Warfare 2. Do you know which one it is?
Yeah.
Anuj? Was it 2?
Yeah, Modern Warfare. Yeah. I've heard him talk about it on stream.
Okay, yeah.
He's made some of the best maps, like been involved with some of the best maps that have been.
So he's not just a goofy Twitch streamer. He actually has some credibility in the scene. So he was on the H3 and H3 podcast, and they asked him the question, basically, what does he feel about PUBG and more so just Battle Royale games in general. I want to play this quick. It's about 1:40, almost maybe 2 minutes, but then I want to use that as a launching point for the discussion. With IEM Oakland coming up, that's going to be one of the first real tournaments for PUBG, and maybe kind of use that as a launching point to discuss it. So here is Dr. Disrespect with H3H3 talking some PUBG. Oh, let me turn that up.
Sense that it has a certain level of depth to the gameplay, with scopes and leading and bullet lead and all that stuff, right? But there's still the element, like, and I talk about it too, and this is up for debate, is it's still randomized loot. Like, if I land at this house, I don't know what's going to be in the house.
Right. That is super annoying about the game. It's like sometimes you can just search a whole village.
Yeah.
And you.
Yeah.
Nada.
I think there should be. I think if Battlegrounds wants to take it to the level that they want to take it at, even from a commentating standpoint, like commentators, the problem I think with battle royale games is that the game starts off, everyone's flying in, right? And when they fly in, they land. As a commentator, what's the story that you're trying to tell? Well, the only story that you're really trying to tell is, okay, that's TSM, and they're on the south end. They're going to look at looting the military base. We'll see what comes of that. But
Slow start.
It's slow start, and there's not much of a narrative to it.
Right.
But if you were to take a look at the fact that, like, hey, let's if there was set loot in this map, and everyone was landing down, and you see two teams going to an area, as a commentator, you have knowledge like, hey, there's where the sniper is, and there's a level 3 helmet there. You can actually spectate that and figure out which team gets that, acquires
and there's
that.
Strategy in getting there.
Yes. And there's a narrative to talk about.
Sure. So I think it seems like they just need a completely different mode of playing to make it an actual high-level competitive game.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should. That seems like within reason.
They should at least try it out.
Yeah, they should
and see how it's received.
So there again, Dr. Disrespect with H3 talking about specifically PUBG, but in general, the Battle Royale type of games, and even more broad spectrum, just RNG in general, right? Like, does RNG even have a place in competitive gaming?
Yeah.
I want to let's start with that. Let's start with RNG in esports or competitive gaming, and then we'll morph into PUBG, because I think we'll have more opinions on that.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to see their favorite players and their favorite team just in any battle royale game die instantly with nothing, like not even a way to defend themselves, just bad RNG there. And also, I'll take it beyond just weapons in any battle royale game. The RNG in the circle too. I mean, there's not only RNG in gear, but there's RNG in the in game, and it just sucks. They need to figure out a way to cut out as much RNG as possible, because there's still going to be a little bit. But I mean, there's ways, like he said, to kind of limit it and try something new if you want to be legitimate.
Yeah, I think RNG doesn't have like much of a place in sports, because it limits how skilled one can be at the game, right? Like, if you don't know what's going to happen, you can easily just have a bad round. And like to Brett's point, like the circle in these games or whatever is enclosing you, like maybe limited to like 4 spots that it could spawn, right? Versus having 50 different places, and it's always just a crapshoot. You're on one side and it spawns on the bottom left, you're in the top right. Like, that makes it very difficult to strategize a game. And so I think if you had like 4 set points, then you can strategically pick, to his point, like where you want to go and get your loot and move on. Having randomized weapons, it's the worst. Like, it's just so hard to it's fun as a player, right? For us, we can enjoy it, can still be frustrating. But like, from a competitive standpoint, if I'm watching, the last thing I want to see is a dude that has a level 3 helm, fully decked out car and an M4, and this one guy's like searched 40 homes and he's come out with a revolver and a level 1 vest. Like, it's just
and if you want to bring it to just like regular sports, right? Like, you're watching the World Series, someone hits a ball up in the air, right? Something that would have been normally a fly ball just on a normal night. Maybe there's a gust to wind, it blows out. But we're not going to go back and say, well, if it wasn't for that wind, find a way to just eliminate that conversation of, TSM only lost because Break couldn't find a weapon in 20 houses, like you said.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want that to be the end game. We don't want that to be the narrative.
I was about to say, it's not the fact that there's RNG. You don't want it to be the narrative. You don't want it to be the deciding factor. Listen, I'm a realist, right? There's going to be RNG in games. Look at Hearthstone. Hearthstone is not only a very competitive game or a very successful game, but even in the esports scene, it does have its competitive scene. That whole game is based off of RNG. It's a card game. Every card game is RNG. With going back to PUBG to kind of blend in the discussion, I don't think you're ever going to see the fact that you're never going to see preset spawns, because I just don't think that's the style of the game. And now if you're going back to Dr. Disrespect's point of, well, just maybe try it out, right? Even if it's just for a tournament or something, right? For the competitive sake of it, maybe have set ones. But one thing that they do right, to kind of combat the, hey, you just got unlucky and you didn't find anything that game, is they do the
Right.
multiple games with the point system. And even that's not perfect, right? Because we
But it's
discussed
still a
it there.
crapshoot, right?
Yeah, it
Couldn't
is.
you still
It
run
is.
into, like, how many times have we been to Pochinki, for example? That's a town in PUBG. But like, how many times have we been there and like we come out with everything, or we come out with nothing, and it could be multiple games in a row where it's like, this town sucks. Let's go to someplace else. You know?
Right. No, and
is there
I'm not
another game that
disagreeing
we
with
can
that.
think of?
But
Is there another game that we could think of that has that kind of RNG in competitive esports?
well, I mean,
Besides, like you said, card games, like
or
there's
battle
still,
royale. Because I mean, you can look at H1Z1, and one of their fixes for it is that when H1Z1 first came out, it was a little bit more like PUBG, where it was scarce to find guns, and now you play H1Z1, and it's like every home they're everywhere. They were like, fine, we're just gonna oversaturate it, so that way everyone has the same gun, and the rest is up to your skill and strategy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about outside of the
Battle Royale and
type.
card game.
Yeah, it's outside of battle royales. In card games, let's put it kind of in its own.
It's
like,
difficult to
they're all
see.
like that, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to think of any off the top of my head, because even like take a game like Counter-Strike, for example, right? Every gun has a spray pattern, and that spray pattern is the same, and that's part of the skill curve, is learning the spray pattern. Do you guys remember, I think it maybe was, it might have been like 2 years ago, where for like a day, they implemented random spray patterns. It was like in a patch where they did random spray patterns. Do you remember this, Anuj?
No, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I'm not going to lie. It was right when they added the R8 revolver.
First shot accuracy, are you talking about?
No, I'm just talking about, it was like most guns just had more of a random spray pattern. It was seriously in the game for a night. And then Valve
the RA triggered me enough to where I was out for a week.
Right. But it was seriously for like a night where Valve was like, ooh, okay, this was a mistake. And then they reversed that patch. So, I mean, even then, it just doesn't work in the FPS zone. I'm sure MOBAs, some of that has a little RNG with your stats, but not as much.
Like, and maybe in terms of stats, but not in terms of like gear or how, like, what spawns where on the map, right?
Everything is right. I mean, like for example, like MOBA, you might have something where it's, your crit is 30% chance, right? So you have that percentage built in, which is RNG, right? 30% is the same as saying you have RNG. It's all the same, but it's not solely based off the skill, right? Everyone has that kind of thing on Dota or any type of MOBA or competitive RPG, I guess, if you will, or stat-based game. It's maybe different with
maybe
PUBG.
They're creating their own genre, right? Like this Battlegrounds is becoming more and more popular. Like you said, you've already mentioned H1Z1, Fortnite. Obviously, you have PUBG. Like maybe they're creating their own little space in esports that would work. But I think there's things they can do to obviously increase, like the level of viewership is going to be huge early on. It's going to be like new and fresh. Right. But over time, you're going to see a frustration level, and that can hurt your game. So they have time to be able to correct it. And I think it's probably right going into IEM Oakland the way that it is, because that's what's made your game popular. But when you see the esports scene, if you see it kind of tilting one way, then you kind of know, like, hey, we should probably make some changes. And they still have time. I mean, the game is not a full release, but we don't think it's perfect the way it is.
No, and
it could be. It could.
Go ahead.
Right, well, I mean, just one quick thought. I mean, there are quick and easy ways to fix the game. I mean, how would you guys feel about maybe spawning in with a pistol? Just something that you could have an initial firefight with, and see some, you be able to see some action, like be able to there's a firefight there, and if you want that loot that's in military, you have something to defend yourself with.
So this is the only reason I think I would be okay with that route. Like if you just gave someone a pistol, if you found that games were going too long. I don't think giving someone a pistol would help fight RNG, because let's face it, if there's two buildings at the start, I go into one building, you go into the other, we both have pistols, but all of a sudden in your building you just picked up an M4 and I found a smoke grenade. You're still gonna dominate me. Like there's no way I'm getting out of that scenario. The only
My
way
AK is going to beat your pistol.
right, no matter what, the pistol at the start would help if you like. Let's say IEM Oakland happens, and keep in mind most of these tournaments so far for PUBG have either been a charity or kind of like a test run. When you have big money on the line, and this is me personally, if it's $100,000 and it's based off of if I have to survive 10 more, deaths, I'm going to sit my ass in a closet for the next 20 minutes while everyone else kills each other. Yes, I won't move for the next 30 minutes if it means I'm going to make $10,000 more dollars. So the only way the pistol, and that would extend the game, which we've all seen with the World Series. Shorter games are better, right? No one liked the 5.5 hour baseball game. And if PUBG all of a sudden turns into a marathon to watch, then I could see where adding a pistol at the start would help intensify the start of the game.
Let me tell you another issue with my thoughts on the pistol at the start. So picture you're dropping into a big town where there's different elevations, right? Whether that be buildings, sides of cliffs, whatever it may be. You're still going to have people go to mass areas, right? Because most of the loot's still going to be in the bigger town. So then the whole strategy of the game, in my mind, would turn into something like, oh gosh, let's all land our team on the highest point and then just start shooting at people that are still on parachutes coming down. Because people land at all different times in these games. I mean, we've seen people land 10, 15, 20 seconds before somebody else. And in some cases, if somebody's doing a longer run, more. So that would be an issue of like figuring out how to start the game off then without losing 40 people at the beginning and then everybody just hiding real quick.
Yeah.
I think the only, like they said, they could either do this, and it would definitely help with the narrative of if you have set spawns in areas, so that way everyone knew, like, oh man, these two teams are rushing to the school, and everyone knows, tier 3 armor and M4 spawns there, right? Like every time it spawns there. And maybe you could even do that, right? Like the school is huge. What if you just have it to where, for sure, a tier 3 helmet and vest spawns somewhere in the school? And then that way, you still have the narrative of, okay, teams, if you want to risk it, go to the school and get the tier 3 stuff. But it's random on where it's going to be at within the school. So you still have that suspense and drama of like who's going to find it first while fighting each other.
But there's still RNG.
But you're not gonna get rid of RNG. That's one of the appeals to this game is people finding the loot and then fighting with it.
And even like you said, to your point, like I think they would probably do that anyway, right? Because even if you spawn like, hey, this house is going to have an AK and M4 in it with loot, I don't think they would naturally spawn it in the same spot in the house every single time either. Like it could be in the upstairs bedroom, downstairs.
Right. Well,
bedroom.
and that's what it all depends on how far you want to get rid of RNG.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, these games are built around it. It has to be its own way of being done. It's just there's going to be more of a middle ground than where there is now.
You have to find the balance between RNG, but then also keeping it competitive for competitive scene, right? The only other thing, and I don't really like it because it's how H1Z1 did it, is, okay, it's still going to be RNG on where things spawn. And even in PUBG, everyone knows, right? There's heat maps where you can look up and Google, like, what areas of the map are typically where you're going to find the better spawns. But if you just put more guns out there, and then that way it's like, okay, well, people can go here and there, but you're probably going to at least find competitive guns to fight against. But I don't know if I really like that idea as much, because then it's just everyone running in opposite directions because they know where no matter where they go, they're going to get an AK. So, I don't know. If you want my honest opinion, and they brought it up here, and I actually have an audio clip here of them talking about it, and we can kind of use this as a segue to play this second clip from Dr. Disrespect talking to H3H3, is the map. Once PUBG starts adding more maps, I think it will help if you have kind of soft RNG built in where, and I'm going to call soft RNG where something's going to spawn there, you just don't know exactly where. Because if all of a sudden you can have a map rotation or random map selection out of maybe 3 or 4 maps, and if the maps are good design, then I think that will help at least spice it up a little bit.
For sure. I think another map could be huge. I think they've already obviously announced their second map, which is that desert map, PUBG.
Yeah, they announced that forever ago.
Like, see, H1, I'll tell you what this bothered me on H1 is when they went to the new map, they took the old one out of play. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that old map. I liked it a lot. The elevations had the crazy mountains on there, and there were so many fun fighting spots, and they created the new map and
unless the map's broken, and this goes for any game, unless it's broken, why take it away?
Yeah.
I feel like developers are guilty of this all the time. Especially when you transition to new games, right? Look at Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is an amazing game. I am loving it, by the way. But there are certain things where it's okay, well, this was in Destiny 1. Why did you take it away? It's just, that's a different rant in general, but...
Well, look at Counter-Strike. The biggest rant in Counter-Strike is that they just continue to fix old maps instead of making new maps and building up the map pool and making it fun for viewers as well as players. I think having just new maps in general is what the game needs instead of revamping the same old map and then spitting out the same product. And it's okay, it looks pretty. I feel like you could have been doing that anyway while creating a new map.
Yeah, and let me do this then. Let me play the second clip from Dr. Disrespect because it's exactly talking about map design.
And we haven't even talked about level design. That's a whole other world.
That's your expertise, right?
Yeah, there's systems, right? There's systems, there's player mechanics, and then there's the actual level design aspect of a lot of games, right?
Do you think that level design is kind of underappreciated?
I think so.
Of competitive.
I think level design it seemed like it was valued a long time ago. You saw Counter-Strike levels to this day are
same shit.
Same, but they're still the best, right? Because they're so well balanced. And you look at old Halo maps, Halo 2 maps, and there's a reason why those old ones are starting to still be recreated even with all the new Halos coming out or whatever. I just think I don't know why, but it seems like with the older maps, it seems like everything now is catering to the wrong reasons. Pacing of the game, being able to right out of spawn, you're able to engage combat a lot quicker. So it's catering to a wider spectrum of people rather than trying to introduce that skill gap.
And again, I really can't disagree with anything that he said. I think
the dude is so sharp, man. Just hearing him talk.
I wish I had those pipes.
Exactly what right? Yeah.
For someone who actually has his own radio show, believe it or not, I'm on the radio, and this is my voice. I don't have a broadcaster voice. This is it. This is what God gave me.
This is what you're working with.
Yeah, this is. Listen, I got to play with the cards I'm dealt. But no, when Dr. Disrespect gets out of character, that I could listen to him for days, just breaking down. I was so I was blown away when I was listening to the podcast live. I was like, damn, this dude knows what he's talking about when it comes to, I guess, his opinions, but his outlook on the competitive scene. And I don't disagree with him on the map design. There's a reason people constantly play older maps from older games, and it's not nostalgia's sake, because look at all these people who are in Counter-Strike playing it for the first time. You can ask someone who is brand new, who just picked up Counter-Strike for CSGO, and they will still tell you to this day, Dust 2 is one of the best maps in the game. And they have no former memories of it from youth. Because the map is good. And looking back for Halo 2, think of Midship or Beaver Creek or Battle Creek, whichever one you want to call it, if it's Halo 1 or 2. You have those classic maps that were designed to be competitive.
Right? That's to his point, is the new group of developers and creators and content creators. They are catering to a much wider audience. Gaming is so broad and it's gone to touch so many different people, competitive and non-competitive, that they try to play that middle line rather than drives what I feel makes the money, which is a lot of games getting into esports now.
Well, and I'll bring it up even to this, and this is taking it away from level design, but it's just it's staying on topic of the catering to a different audience. Back in the day, there used to be something in video games, boys and girls, called map control. Map control was the name of the game. If you wanted to compete in Halo or Call of Duty or any FPS that really had any type of respawn to it, you had to control the map. And by doing so, you could basically control where the other team was going to respawn. You would spawn lock them into maybe like a half of the map, and then none of your guys would push. If you push to the other side, the game would trigger that, and they would spawn elsewhere. Well, I believe it started with maybe Call of Duty Black Ops, maybe even Modern Warfare 2. But they got rid of the set spawn areas and map control and added a random spawns. And that completely altered the way people played competitive games because you eliminated the map control. You eliminated what could have been a strategic advantage or that narrative in games where it was like, man, taking it back to Halo 2, where final boss was controlling straight ripping. When is straight ripping going to be able to break this kind of cycle of constantly getting spawn locked? And you would wait for that big play. And you could do that even with friends in matchmaking. You could spawn lock some random poor scrub and dominate them. But I think when you're looking at the general consensus, people complained about it, and that's why they got rid of it.
Yeah, because who doesn't like getting shot in the back, right? Constantly. Just by somebody random coming from a weird direction that you wouldn't expect.
Maybe this right here is what's caused that raging generation that we're in now. Like, this could be, we just might have found the root cause of what created, like, trolls and, like, just internet haters. Like, oh my gosh.
I don't know, Anush. What was Tim like Modern Warfare 2? What was he like?
Good job.
I was happy. Well, but I mean, to bring up, to talk seriously about your joking point, it does have some sense to where when you're playing with friends and you're better than someone, but then a random spawn puts them behind your team, and then they just blow up your team or anything like that. Like, that doesn't sit well with the competitive scene, There's a reason, like with Counter-Strike, they figured out the formula early on, and for the most part haven't changed anything. Like, even when they add new maps, they try to trick it up with canals, and it's an awful map. They tried to trick it up. They went away from their simple map design and try to get fancy with it, and it just doesn't work. Why? I don't know. But it just, and I think that's one of the issues with even new games trying to break that competitive, that ceiling, is they try to trick it up too much. I mean, look at Halo. And I'm constantly going back to there because it was a very popular game. And the map design was on point. Well, or even Call of Duty. When you add like jump packs and being able to climb up walls, you're adding an entire another second or third layer onto maps. And it's making them way too big, way too complicated for just anyone to just pick up the game and play and or watch for that matter. And that's bringing it to Overwatch, it's just sometimes it can get too complicated.
So let's take it back to canals, and maybe it goes back to RNG, right? Because on canals, there's like how many different angles somebody can come from to get to you at a certain bomb site. Maybe it's an RNG. It's an RNG factor. Like, where are they going to come from? We don't know. But on maps like Dust 2, there's a couple of directions on A site that they can come from, or on B site rather. Where they're going to come from. There's two directions,
and you have a fighting chance to do that.
Contact points, right? Yeah. They create contact areas where these are like engagement zones. This is where the fight's going to take place. So as a viewer, kind of when to keep your eye on something. That's what makes spectating so great in those games, right? Because they can see something about to happen, right? They know where the engagement's going to take place. It eliminates that RNG completely. If they're going to do an A push, you're going to have like 3 guys setting up for a smoke, and they can call the game more like a play-by-play style rather than waiting for something to happen and be more reactionary in your commentating. And from a viewership standpoint, it's kind of the, oh crap, that just happened, versus, you really understanding this is exactly what's going on and where it's all going to take place.
It's an interesting topic and discussion, and I don't know what it could ever be solved, because no matter what, you're going to get AAA developers developing games for the masses. You're going to get everyone who calls themselves the next big esports, and it's never going to work because everyone tries to trick it up too much. So I don't know. I really don't know what the direction. I can't wait to see the direction of gaming going forward. Like when it comes to competitive game, you're gonna have to find like that perfect balance between simplicity, but then making your game fun enough to where it's simple, but it's not boring. Does that make sense? Like I think,
yeah. Sure.
I mean, look at Counter-Strike, right? That's why we can sink so many hours into it, because it's not complicated. You don't really have to think that hard while playing it, but at the same,
maps are easy enough to like. Well, thinking hard is like depending on the level you want to play at, right? Like
right.
Yeah, that's if you're playing with Silver 1, probably not a lot of thinking going on in those kinds of games.
But you can climb the skill gap, right? You can see the curve, and you can figure out what you need to do to get it.
Exactly. And then Counter-Strike's just unique in that sense, though. I mean, you don't see too many games, if any, that have withheld the test of time, map creation-wise, and simplicity as far as complexity within the game, right? From the thought process, you look at the coaches and what they go through, how much thought's behind it, but how simple the concept is as a whole. And it's just going to take a creator that wants to do it, right? Like somebody just wants that, that should be the intention of the game going into it. Battalion 44 has mentioned themselves as that type of game. I think that's one to maybe keep an eye on.
And that's that new World War II?
Yeah, it's another World War II, and it's kind of odd that it's releasing similar time to, COD World War II. But I believe they're in beta, so another one to keep an eye on, because they've always said their focus has been just the competitive, like esports side of it. So it'll be nice to see what they bring to the table.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. I don't. We could probably continue talking about this the entire show, but I don't want to get too bogged down with it. But again, when listening to Dr. Disrespect, it really took me back, kind of made me think of it from a different perspective, and I don't know. I thought that was a good talk.
Made me tingle a little bit.
Yeah, we love you 2-time.
2-time. But you did have, speaking of Counter-Strike in all its glory, you had one of the actually bigger tournaments throughout the year, and I say bigger because it normally produces some pretty good competition, but the Epicenter 2017 just took place. It wrapped up on Sunday. I'll start from bottom to top real quick, because really the bottom half of this, from 5th to 8th, it really not much happened. I mean, Liquid and Gambit got 7th and 8th. North and FaZe tied for 5th and 6th. And then I'll use the FaZe getting 5th and 6th as a jumping point to the discussion. What is there to say about FaZe? Nuge, I'll let you start. There's too much to say, but
he's the one trolling.
I know. Yes, you're the one calling them out on Twitter, so I'll let you speak your mind.
Yeah, I mean, FaZe, again, they're awesome, right? Like let's start off with that. They're obviously a really good team. I'm just
don't backtrack.
No, I just don't like the cockiness that's come with that team. Like listening to Nico on Twitter, dude, it like kills me to see him talk on Twitter, because everything just comes across as so cocky and like arrogant. And what they forget is like where Nico came from, right? He was in a situation with Mouse where he was the all-star and they weren't getting anywhere. Now they've paired him with all-stars. Kind of started off the same with FaZe, right? He was kind of the all-star again. Not a whole lot was going well for them.
They quickly built around him.
Very quickly. And when you build around somebody to add that type of talent, like you added other all-stars to your team. So I think they need to show a little bit more like grace, as they kind of move forward. I
A
think
little
they
bit more
dropped to number
class.
2. Yeah, they fell to 2 in the standings, which maybe that'll kind of help with that a little bit, because it's not easy to hold that one spot for a long time.
So
Ask teams like Astralis and all these guys, like it's hard to hold that number 1 spot.
You already have an enemy in the CSGO team. Like the bad guy, I think, is North, right? I think North and SK, I think, sometimes can be the bad guy. FaZe does not
Because
want to
they're
be
good,
the bad guy.
but
Like,
yeah.
you are the Miami Heat right now of CSGO. And so when you lose, you just kind of have to roll with the punches. But don't get on Twitter and like you said, Anuj, have that bad attitude about it, because it's just going to rub everyone the wrong way. Like, you're as FaZe, what excuse do you have? Especially when they were eliminated by, who was it? Virtus Pro, right? Wasn't that like the team that was the last nail in the coffin?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you know what the worst thing is, what makes this even worse? These were best out of 3 games, right? Like, that was...
This was the moment, the scenario where everyone's like, well, there's no luck in best of 3s.
Yeah, it's not like it was just that one map that y'all are not very good at. Like, you had an opportunity to win 2 out of the 3 maps. You're the better team. You should come through in these situations. VP is a whole nother topic. I mean, we've done shows about VP, and it's like we could write another story today.
And
so
let me quickly go over the rest of the standings, and then we'll just kind of bounce back and forth into discussion, because you can't talk about FaZe not qualifying for the playoffs and then VP. So you had Astralis get 4th, G2 get 3rd, VP, Virtus Pro got 2nd place, and SK ended up winning it in 1st. So that being said, let's jump back to VP, because to add extra salt into the wound of FaZe, yes, VP played out of their minds this tournament, and they do that, right? They have the capability of shutting down the best teams in the world. That being said, unless they've been practicing behind closed doors against some of these teams, their normal skill talent right now has been the Premier League. Like, they should not have been able to handle FaZe the way they did, because they just aren't even used to playing that type of caliber. Like, I think FaZe, maybe they surprised FaZe. Maybe it was FaZe thought it was going to be a lot easier than what they did. Well,
I mean, this tournament here for VP embodies their entire existence right now. Like, you look at the final standings, they had a minus 16 round differential, minus 16 at the end, and that game against FaZe, the first map in Noosh, right? They lost I think they won 2 rounds that entire map, and then they come back and win the next 2. It's like, be consistent. Like, that's their problem. They're consistent only when it matters. And
but isn't that what matters too at the same time? Like, if they keep getting invites to these, if they keep getting invites, which they're going to continue getting invites, let's be real, they're not going anywhere, right? And they hold that major spot. That's the most important part, is they hold that major legend spot. This team doesn't have to go anywhere.
No,
like, they could be
perfectly fine jumping back between Premier and the Pro League and ESL if in the meantime you're going to win, $100,000 here and there, and maybe qualify for the next major and get more money there. I'm sure they're fine with it.
They always do just enough to be to keep maybe the owners happy, but to keep them together, because for the longest time, there's been that kind of rumor hey, when are they going to break up? But then they get second place in a tournament like this against SK, where it's well, maybe we should keep the band together, and maybe we can get this thing figured out. It's just they always do just enough at the right time to just keep this thing.
The thing that would
together
that would drive me nuts if I was a Virtus Pro fan for their CSGO team is situations like this, and I can only imagine it's how my parents felt when I would bring home an A on an exam, and then in between the exams, I would get C's and F's on all my homework, right? Where they were okay, well, we know you can do it, So why don't you do it all the time?
Like, why is it
Right.
all?
Yeah, like why are you not trying all the time? Just put your best foot forward all the time. And I'm like,
Because I
And coming out of this
A to
tournament,
pass.
yeah, right.
coming out of this tournament, doesn't it still feel like a win for them? Like,
Well, absolutely,
even though
because
it's
no one's talking about SK winning. Everyone's talking about Virtus Pro getting second.
How
Which is
nice
incredible.
it's to have them back, right?
Is it? But here's
so
the
nice
thing:
to have them back.
is it
It's like,
incredible,
that's what people
or
are saying.
are they playing possum the entire time? Right? Like
No,
this is
man,
what
they have-
frustrates me with if I was a Virtus Pro fan is that this proves that it's just mentality, right? It's just them not wanting to perform. Maybe I guess the future will tell, but that's what I feel.
part of it is they have a different person like kind of step up every time too, right? Like this tournament, it was Neo. Previously the last tournament it was like Pasha. Then if you think back to some of their other runs, it was like Snacks was the all-star. So it's like they find a different person to play really well in these big events, and everybody else contributing, right? As long as they're not completely off their game. All they need is one of them to be on point. I always catch myself rooting for them, though.
They're like, well,
not
they're
rooting-
likable.
Yeah, I mean,
They don't have anyone
but
that annoys you.
Part of it is they're the older gamers, right? Like they're 30 years old. That's what you got. Neo just turned 30. I mean, I believe all of them are right in that age group. So it's always fun to kind of root for them because they show there's no age limit to these games, and hey, they find a way to do it. It's crazy, man. I never have faith in them too. It's always like, nope, they're going to be out in groups. Like there's just no way they're playing FaZe. They're playing, now G2 in the semifinals, they're definitely losing to G2, right? Then it's even SK in the best of 5, and it's like, no way, no chance. Even then, they take them to match point in like 2 separate or 3 separate occasions to, pull it off. So they were that close to winning this whole thing.
I don't know, man. I wish I knew what to say about Virtus Pro and their ups and downs. I don't know if it's a mentality thing, if it's, they say that they don't care about online. Maybe it has something to do with that, but they sure do make the storylines exciting at these tournaments. SK, though, their first showing with their new roster, Bolts is full-time, right?
Potential first versus, right? That hasn't been
okay, so that's
yet.
not
but
confirmed.
the players have come out and said, like Cole Zier came out and said, he allows me and Fur to do what we do best. Like, I feel like the players want him, and it's going to happen, right?
Well,
Eventually.
so they've already said that Phelps will be there for the major, so he will be playing with them at the major. So Bolts is not going to
really?
be. Yeah, it was Taco that said it. So unless he gave out misinformation, Taco confirmed, and I think somebody else confirmed as well that
Until Fallen says it.
Well, and
Right.
part of it is probably working with the buyout, right? I don't think that's taken place. So that's why he wore an IMT jersey in the event.
He's still on Immortals. He's still with Immortals.
He's still with Immortals. So I think it's happening, but it won't happen until after.
Fascinating. I did not know that. I really, though, it was pretty cool seeing him after the win, though, and you could tell like just the emotion running. Maybe so. With that being said, so he was either crying over two things. He was either crying because he won, or he's crying because he knows he's not on the team and he's got to go back to Immortals.
He's going back.
He's like, guys, please,
Please don't.
por favor.
No, they played really well.
Or whatever.
Dude,
I don't speak Spanish.
Wrong language.
Whatever.
Move along, right?
And it's
like,
not.
like,
It's
to
not
him, like
his.
everyone's like the.
It's not really like his fault either, right? Like, good for him. I'm happy for Bolts if he gets out of the Immortals situation. Even though I've said it before, I feel bad for the organization of Immortals because they did nothing wrong. It was just that Brazilian mentality of we're going to do what we want to do. Regardless of what the organization says or what contracts we have, we're just going to do what we want to do.
Those players' mentality, not Brazilians as a whole, right? Like those players,
They're close knit.
You don't think it happens with Brazilians more?
I think we make a bigger deal out of it. I don't think it happens more, no.
You don't think the entire reason that SK has the roster that they have is for that exact reason when they signed underneath the table and not telling Luminosity?
Yeah, I've seen other teams, and you look at who was it? The first time, like Olaf and them left, the way they split up. I mean, it's not like it's always pretty on both ends. I think Steel and these guys, obviously being Brazilian, are not in the same category as them, right? So it's just a person, like they're the issue with that team. FNX, obviously being the other example there, but Simple has been known to be, toxic in an environment. So I don't think it's just Brazilians as a whole.
Maybe not. I mean, not just Brazilians, but maybe, I don't know.
Maybe I'm prejudiced just because I don't like SK, but I just in general though, I'm gonna say that's what I feel like happened with the Immortals.
Scenario.
That's what happened with the Immortals situation. They
get a bad rap because their gaming community is toxic. Like we know that as online gamers, we see that like their gaming community can be like the casual one. Maybe it's because they're playing on our server. Who knows? Probably have their own. But yeah, the ones we see, at least in a lot of our games, yes, you could definitely say that.
Overall, though, pretty good performance by Epicenter. I was happy with it. I still don't like the stage setup. I think it's cheesy, where it kind of looks like a Battlegrounds-esque, right? They got like the sandbags and everything. I like that. Dude, it's so corny.
I liked it too. I thought it looked really cool. Like it was. I get what you're saying though. Like I've not. Yeah. It was so a cheesy look. It's like really super cheesy, but it's like it's cool too. I mean, it's like okay, they made it a bomb site.
Yeah, I get what I get what they're doing. It's just I feel like if I told my friends to watch this, they'd be like, all right, I see what this is going.
I get it. You're Counter-Strike.
Yeah, okay. You like video games. Cool, man. Cool.
I think the players are getting a kick out of it from like terms of it had to be kind of fun to be up there and like I love the boots. Did you see the boots that they had? I thought those were really nice.
Oh, it's always very high production. They always do a great job.
They did such a great job on that trophy that SK got stopped in the airport because it had bullets on it.
I saw that post by Paul, and he's like, "We'll get this trophy home, guys. I promise." It's like, oh man, that sucks.
That's pretty funny.
So what's the next big tournament here coming up in Counter-Strike? I guess IEM.
IEM will be a fun one.
You have IEM coming up. You also have the iBuyPower Masters. That's coming up in November 11th, so that's just next weekend. So you have iBuyPower.
If you're looking for this weekend, you have the SLI League, or the SLI Invitational, right? So that has Renegades, VP, Heroic, Kailu,
Virtus Pro,
Hellraiser.
Renegades.
So it's got some good teams in there. Okay. So if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, you can check that out.
And then you have iBuyPower the weekend after. So, Cloud9's going to win that. That's their annual feel-good tournament. Yep, it's them and Liquid in the final. So Cloud9 will win that.
I'm calling it now.
There you go, man.
Calling it now. It'll be Steel's team versus Day's team final.
They're not even in it, sir.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
that'd be
How
pretty
awesome would that have been, though?
They should have, man. Because that entire tournament's an invitational. So they could have. They should have invited them.
Should have invited.
It's just kind of. Wow, you want to talk about the most watched tournament though? That would have been huge.
Oh man! Oh my God! The viewer count be insane.
Boot out Luminosity and like Misfits or something or NRG.
NRG, yeah, for real, man. Where have they been?
Misfits, I would actually like to see. I think, but NRG and Luminosity, they boot them, bring them both in.
All right, let's get into some e-news, shall we? Starting with CSGO, since we're just on topic there, you do have the American Minor that starts up tomorrow. Correct me, Anuj. Does this get directly? Whoever wins this goes directly to the major.
Not the major qualifier.
They go to the major qualifier.
So teams that are waiting for them in the next stage are teams like your Cloud9, people that were, I can go look it up, so I don't have it in front of me, but there's teams like Cloud9 and all these guys are waiting to qualify still. They're in the major qualifiers. So you're going to have 8 teams advancing coming up through this next minor qualifier finals, which is taking place right now.
Liquid in it, right?
Yeah, because Liquid didn't even qualify for the major last time.
So 2 teams are going to make it from the Americas. So your biggest teams to look out for: Liquid, Misfits, NRG, and CLG, basically. So 2 teams are going to make it out of that grouping, right? So that's pretty rough.
Right.
Then the other big names to keep an eye out for is the European minor. So like Optic is in that, Envious is in that, Godsend, Space Soldiers. So quite a few big names on that side. 2 of those teams will make it to the Boston major qualifier, which will happen in Boston at the beginning of January.
All right. And then in Dota, last weekend you had ESL 1 Hamburg wrap up. That is one of, I think it was the first major of this year, or first major in the next season of Dota, if you will. You know how Dota announced that they're going to have like all these majors coming up now? So this was the first one. So this was the $1 million tournament where you had Virtus Pro beat Team Secret 2-0. Liquid, which was actually my favorite team to beat, they made it to the semifinals. They lost to Team Secret, and Newbie lost to Virtus Pro in the semis. Coming up tomorrow, one of my favorite events of the year, Smash Summit 5 starts tomorrow, and that goes on through Sunday.
It's like your Super Bowl, man.
Man, it is so fun to watch.
Yeah. I like it too, man. You've turned me on to that.
Any of those summit events, though. So those summit events, Anuj, remember Counter-Strike, they do it? So this is the one where it's literally in a house. And the pros,
so it's going to be the same setup.
Same setup. It's the same house. So
no, that's all. Oh, is it? Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
it's the same house where they just have the pros, the commentators, just basically chill in a house for the weekend, playing this big tournament. I mean, they're actually big tournaments, and they just kind of hang out. So, you know,
I really enjoyed that event. Yeah, so I would look forward to.
And then like
watching.
they have like the after nights where the Smash, their big thing is they'll play Town of Salem, so they'll like after the matches and stuff at like 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. They might be streaming still, and they'll just be playing Town of Salem or doing whatever.
And friendships will be lost.
Yeah, it's great, man. It's an awesome event. Also starting up, just in general, BlizzCon is this week, which means you also have the Overwatch World Cup, which is kind of like a preview. It's leading up into the Overwatch League, which starts in about a month.
Yeah, and it sucks that the championship game is going to be in the first round. Like
you have
South Korea and USA.
Yeah,
are
South
the two
Korea
best
and
teams,
USA are in the same
they're
side.
playing each other in the first. Yeah, it's like that should be your championship, but it's not going to be.
Not
sad.
looking good, but you never know.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, miracles do happen. Miracles happen.
Maybe this will be another Russia USA.
In Overwatch, or I guess still in Overwatch, but the Overwatch League now, a lot of teams were announced. I don't even know which ones we announced last week. Houston Oilers, or Houston Oilers. Whoa!
Throwback.
I'm going way back with that one. I don't know why I did that.
Do you even remember when they were the Oilers?
No, like I'm not even old enough to remember the Houston Oilers. So that's weird. Past life, I guess. The Houston Outlaws, which is Optic's team there, they announced their name.
Sick logo.
Best logo thus far. They
Not
have
even close. Yeah, best logo, not even close.
You
There's
have
no close second.
London Spitfire. Awesome name. Okay logo. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
They could have done better.
Logo's
with the
fine.
logo.
It's okay. The name is good, I think.
Yeah, the name's pretty dope.
I like it.
Philadelphia Fusion.
Sure, why not?
Whatever. It's not bad, you know.
I'm about to stop down the show.
Then, I don't remember if we mentioned this last episode, if it was even announced by the time we recorded, but the
I don't think so.
New York Excelsior.
Please.
Everything about it is
Why?
everything about it is just awful.
The logo.
the name
God.
to the
So bad.
Are we calling it a logo? Is that what we're gonna call it
looks
with?
like a flag.
It's awful.
It looks like a very crappy flag.
Their logo is like a rectangle with blue lines on it. It's
Yeah.
please, if someone is a New York Excelsior fan and maybe you live in New York and you understand the meaning behind the logo, send me a
Let us
link
know.
because I don't get it. I don't.
Need a
How are you
friend.
supposed to get? You're supposed to get hyped behind your logo, and you have a bunch of lines.
Imagine like wearing a shirt with that as like a full body logo.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. I don't get it. I don't get like, you know, when they announced that, their marketing team was like, "What the hell, dude? Like that's what you're gonna give us? We're supposed to market around this? Like, okay, I'll start looking for another job because we're about to get fired. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe not. We still have 2 teams in the works though. We're waiting for the second LA team to announce it, and Miami, Orlando. They still have yet to announce their team or logo. But after that, which I'm assuming is going to happen here shortly because it seems like teams are rapidly doing it, we'll be all set and we'll be good to go.
Just in time, 1 month before the season starts.
Cut it close. Right. And in other sad esports news, Slingshot Esports is officially shutting down as of yesterday. Thoughts? Sending prayers?
Yeah, wish them all the best, obviously. I guess, I didn't really go to their site or use their site a whole lot, but, I've heard good things about it, so...
I used them for CSGO. Yeah. That's where Decay made his name, obviously. If anyone who follows the CSGO scene, per sources, Decay worked there. And I'm sure they will bounce back, As a homegrown podcast, I feel for the homegrown website shutting down and whatever, man.
Yeah, they did a good job for themselves. Yeah, they were big.
This is good work. Good work. They're nowhere. We are not on the same scale as them.
Kind of surprising.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the last thing I was expecting, but Yeah, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, and esports will move on. I don't know what you want me to say. That will it though. That will be it for episode 80 of The Center Ring, aka TCR. I appreciate you listening. Whether it was all the way through or bounced back and forth, I love you all the same. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. Hit us up on our website, tcr.gg. Hopefully, all other podcast outlets are working now. I don't know why. It's technology. It just decides to break on its own, and I have to figure out how to fix it. So we're working on that. But until next week for episode 81, for Anuj, for Britt, I'm Tim. Follow us on Twitter again at Center Ring, and we'll see you later.